Okay, I think we're all here, and it's 3:30. So just call to order the meeting of the Development Permit Panel for August the 23rd. On the panel today, we have John Irving, our GM of Engineering and Public Works, and also Cecilia Asham, our GM of Community Safety. And my name is Joe Urseg, I'm the GM of Planning. The job of the panel, the role of the panel is to review development permits, take public input, and then make a recommendation to council on the application. And we have a couple of items on the agenda today. So the first, we have some minutes of a previous meeting held on August the 9th. Are there any changes, additions, deletions to those? Don't see any.
None.
So moves. Okay. So we'll consider them adopted. So that brings us to the first application. It's a development permit. The applicant is Polygon Talisman Park Limited, and the property address is 3588 Ketcherson Road. And this development permit is for a 14-story residential building with about 178 residential units in it. So with that, I'm looking, Mr. Glover, are you going to introduce this?
Thanks, Mr. Ursig. Yes, Robin Glover with Polygon Homes. Thank you for having us here this afternoon. With me, I have Gwen Vos from Arcadis, formerly IBI Architects, and Stefan Staliga from HAPA Collaborative. We'll speak to the landscape. Just a couple quick notes. We got some great feedback when we were at Advisory Design Panel. I think we've been working well with staff to resolve those issues, and I think you'll see those in the presentation before you today. Looking forward to your comments and questions, and with no further ado, I'll turn it over to Gwen.
Okay, thank you.
See the presentation on the screen? And
yes.
Hear me well?
We can, yeah.
I'm getting some echo, so if everybody can mute. Testing.
There we go.
Okay, I think this is working now. Can everybody hear me now?
We can, yeah.
Perfect,
Yeah.
and no more mute. Excellent. Okay, well, thanks for hearing me today. Here to present Talisman or Talistar D, the central site in this mixed use community that's being planned for this location. Talisman A is to the south, the wood frame product, and there are future phases to the north as well, with the new road system being built around this site. So the site in question contains a singular building that has a large amount of open space to the north, and again, surrounding streets on two sides, as well as a pedestrian route on the south. Overall, as was mentioned, it's 14 stories, 161 market for sale units and 17 market for rent units, all BUH, with 194 below grade parking stalls, all EV, and 322 bike stalls. Kind of the genesis for the look of the building was inspiration taken from the grasslands and the farmlands that are around the area, the meadows and sort of where the river meets the land. The site context is basically an open field today for the most part, as well as the church property just to the south of us. Again, the site is basically forming a box of program, with the remainder being open space, half of which is public park and half of it which is private amenities. The main pulse of height is on the west side, and on the east it's a little bit lower at 13 stories. As was mentioned, there's below grade parking for 2 levels. as well as a partial portion of bicycle parking as you first come down the ramp. On grade, the parking access comes from the new road here, entering in and going into the basement with a direct path of travel. The loading functions and waste are all down on this bottom portion. The portion to the north includes a sports court, lounge, an entrance for this large amenity zone is accessed by both the residents of the building as well as some of the buildings that surround it will be using this clubhouse as well. The clubhouse is on 2 levels. It's on a ground floor, as well as the floor above has further programmed space. The main lobby is off Ketchison over here, and there are ground-oriented units facing the pedestrian space over here. There's also some bike storage for larger bikes on grade and smaller bikes upstairs. Open to below space in the corner gives you a double height space for the swimming pool on the corner. As was mentioned, there's a full level of rental suites with as BUH, which are also BUH units on the 4th floor. Typical units above carry on up till you get to the last floor, which has a large outdoor space for the building, so for outdoor amenity, as well as an indoor amenity adjacent to that. One more floor of units followed by the rooftop. Overall, the building hits the max heights of permitted in the area, as well as the correct proper heights for any habitable spaces at grade based on the road elevations. As was mentioned, there's basically the podium is double height pool, as well as 2 stories of amenity and town ground-oriented units, as well as regular units all the way up the rest of the building. The screens that are present on the building give it an artful expression, which is important because this neighborhood needs to have artistic expression, part of the art neighborhood. And also it sort of recollects the grasses again in coloration and also in the movement that we're proposing along the balconies. And that expression happens on north, south, and west side, as well as the east elevation, which has it on the window wall itself in colored panels. The proposal includes a lighting scenario that'll have a soft lighting on some of the vertical members in the feature corner only to make it beautiful both during the day and at night. Again, the landscape, which landscape we'll get into, it's very lush, and looking at bringing in conifers and other plants that'll make it quite a lush green experience at grade. This is showing the south side with that ground-oriented units and a decorative fence that's being used as a privacy screen or a rail between the units and the walking path at guardrail height. And there's opportunities for some planting and benching, as well as at the far corner where we're showing a glazed box to actually express the DEU facility on the inside, so you can sort of see some of the engineering. The lobby, as well as the artful rail in the back, seen in these 2 images here, and then the night view. I'll pass it on to landscape to speak to. Stephen, would you like to speak to the slides? You can tell me next, and I'll go to the next slides.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gwen. We always kind of start off our landscape by giving a landscape rationale as to what inspired the design of the site. So a few of the things here is we found a historic map of these sloughs that used to run through the city of Richmond, and one of them actually kind of intersects our site, and so we wanted to celebrate that a little bit and also use it as a divider between the public and private realm. But we wanted to celebrate that in the form of a rain garden. Another principle is just reinforcing the edge and by using topography and planting and providing a bit of separation between the site and the street around it. And then just acknowledging that this site is pretty central to the rest of the development. We wanted to make sure that we address all the connection points and make sure it's accessible for everyone. And then we always take a look at the indoor and outdoor connection, and we've got these strong glazing windows that face this private and public amenity space. And so just making sure that the outdoor spaces match what are being used in the indoor spaces. So here you can see this the ground level landscape. We've got in the most northern area is the SRW. Along that edge that Gwyn is kind of highlighting there, that's the divider between the public and private amenity space. And so you can see we're using this rain garden as kind of that strong divide. But lush planting along the edges, a bit of topography, several large benches that could be used for informal staging or just seating, and an open lawn area. And then crossing over the wooden bridge into the private amenity, we've got an outdoor spa area with hot tub, cold plunge, barrel sauna, and a fire pit. We've also got a barbecue area that connects to the indoor dining experience, as well as a bocce court. And I guess it should just be noted that this ground floor is accessible for all residents of the development, not just this building. Yeah, and then we've got the rooftop here. We've been calling it, we've been inspired by the bento box idea, very grid-like form. You walk out to this large corridor that's flanked by flowering apple trees that are fragrant and colorful. And on either side, we've kind of developed a series of rooms. So we've got urban agriculture, children's play, outdoor dining, and relaxation areas. And just a few sections showing, this is back on the ground level here, the berming that we talked about and some of those raised bench seating. And then the lawn area that would also gently slope back down to the concrete walkway. Yeah, a few more sections. This is now in the private amenity. Yeah, just showing, you know, once again, berming, lush native plantings, and the rain garden. Back SRW here. Yeah. Pretty standard. We've got our ornamental fencing there and some gated access. Yeah. And the rooftop here showing some of that children's play, urban ag, and a section through that corridor of the flowering apple trees. And some of our children's play features, which we have tried to keep more informal, but something that's fun for all the kids and to play around on.
And I think that's the end of the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see if John or Cecilia have any questions.
Just a quick one on the amenity space. So level 13 is for private use only, and the rest of it is all shared with the other phases, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and one question on the septet side of things, I imagine that lighting at grade will be present, but not too glaring. Can you just very quickly walk through that?
Yeah, that's correct. The plan is to have lighting all throughout these walkways here to make sure it's a well-lit space, but we've ensured that all the lighting is facing downwards for, you know, bird habitat and whatnot. Yeah.
Okay.
While you're on the lighting question, can you speak to the building itself and the lighting that you're proposing?
Yes, of course. Maybe Robin, do you want to speak to the lighting when it comes to time of day?
And is it just, did you mention in your presentation that it's just a portion of the building?
Correct. It's only on the west and partially on the north. There's just the portion that you see here in this picture, this leading corner.
Right.
So, Mr. Ursig, those light fixtures that you see there, they're located between panels within a screen. They will have a C channel on the back side so that there's no light shining directly back inside the home itself. We've been working with staff and our electrical engineer to make sure that lighting levels are such that they are not going to disturb other residents of adjacent buildings. So we're limiting the power output. We're controlling the time of day and the intensity. So we have the ability to dim the fixture to 50% if necessary. And one of the development permit considerations is entering into an agreement so that, and bonding for these light fixtures to ensure that the city is satisfied that when it is operating, that it is operating within the parameters that everyone can be happy with.
Right. So you have the ability to adjust it up and down, and if there are any unintended consequences, allow for that.
That's right.
Okay, great. John, did you have questions?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just one. If you could maybe speak to the adjacency to the south. I think that's the church site there. What's happening there?
Sure, I can speak to that. So we've been working closely with the Anglican Church, with the congregation there. We've got a good relationship with them. They have already entered into an underpinning and crane swing agreement with us for the construction of this parcel. You'll notice near the end of the slide deck there was one section through the site that shows about a 3 or 4 foot step down to their parcel. So they're lower than our site there, right there in the, at the bottom. So we're working with them to resolve that interface. We have discussed putting planting beds there for the daycare that is operated from the rear of their site. We've talked about putting chalkboards, painting walls, things of that nature. So we don't have a solution, but we're having the conversation about what that interface will look like, and we're happy to work with them to resolve it.
Great, thanks.
Okay. I had a question that I think relates to the terrace level. There's some urban agriculture up there. And my recollection, maybe this is for Robin or Wayne, through the rezoning, which, had a few twists and turns, there were some commitments made, if I recall, around urban agriculture. Is what you're proposing delivering on the understanding that was reached through the rezoning?
Sure, I can take that one, Wayne. This urban ag on this roof is not part of the relationship that was discussed through the rezoning process.
Okay.
That rooftop urban agriculture is over on Site 1 in Phase 1 and is located on the roof of the first building there, the 6-story wood frame affordable housing site.
Oh, so it was on the one that we've already looked at, is that right?
Correct, that's right.
Okay, so this is just intended as an amenity for the folks in this particular building?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. I didn't have any other questions, so I think you're free and clear. And Wayne, do you have comments on this project?
Just a few comments, Mr. Chair. Do concur with the applicant's commentary on urban agriculture. The requirement secured through the rezoning was fulfilled on the affordable housing building in Phase 1. In terms of additional comments, I just want to clarify that the indoor and outdoor amenity space on this site is shared with the future phases 3 and 4. The rental site in Phase 1 provides all its own indoor and outdoor amenity space. There is no sharing with this site. With respect to the development itself, there is also a comprehensive transportation demand management package. That transportation demand management package includes a number of special features being afforded to the market rental units. Those include bike and car share memberships and 2-zone transit passes for the tenants. The overall TDM package does also include the provision of 2 car share vehicles and 2 car share parking spaces within the parking structure. Those spaces will be available to all members of the public that are part of those car share providers' membership. In addition to that, there is a comprehensive servicing agreement for the road and service connections that are required to service this site. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. Any questions for Wayne?
No.
No. Are there any members of the public in attendance that would like to comment on this project?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no members of the public.
Okay, terrific. And nothing written, Evangel?
None, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So we have a staff recommendation that the permit be issued. Do I have someone to move?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any comments before I call the question? I
I would just say, great looking project, and I'll just call out your exposed corner there for the DE infrastructure. I haven't seen that before on a project, so kudos to you for picking up on our corporate and community focus on clean energy. Great to see.
Yeah,
Best of luck.
I would concur. Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favour? Opposed? It's carried. Thanks very much for your project. Nicely done.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Thank you very
everybody.
much, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, Joe, and bye, Joe. The other Joe, not you.
Okay, just let me get my agenda back up here. So that takes us to the next development permit. The applicant is Farrell Estates, and the property location is, well, it's at Dyken number 9 Road, a series of lots. And the purpose of this development permit is to allow for a light industrial building. And I think we're looking at it because the site has immediate adjacency to the agricultural land reserve. So who's going to present this one?
I'll start off. My name
Okay,
is
Ross.
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Ross McPhail of Farrell Estates. We're the owners of the subject development, which is situated on a former CN right-of-way purchased in 2021. That property was zoned light industrial. We are also the owners of Shelter Island Marina, which is located to the south of the CN right-of-way. We have owned the site for over 50 years and operated the marina since 1975. The building we are discussing today is phase 2 of a multi-phase project. As you mentioned, Joe, phase 2 abuts ALR lands to the north, specifically Maybog Farms. This required us to submit an ALR DP application to address the urban-rural interface with adequate setbacks, screening, and landscaping. We spoke at length with the neighboring landowner and made changes to our landscaping buffer based on their requests. And we subsequently presented to the Food Security and Agricultural Advisory Committee, who reviewed and supported our ALR DP application at its meeting on June 29th. Our vision for the overall future development will consist of approximately 5 phases fronting the river with pedestrian connections to the existing dike, road, and path. But with that said, we don't have any plans right now for those future phases, as we have a very viable and profitable marina business. And we feel these 2 buildings or phases will be a great support to our existing marina and boatyard by accommodating various existing businesses that operate within the boatyard, as well as new businesses, which will help drive growth for the existing on-site businesses, as well as provide much needed warehouse for the city of Richmond. I'll present our design team, which consists of Rushier Dahl, who's the project architect, Darcy Forcier of D-Force Design working under Rushier, and Al Tanzer from Landspace, who's the landscaping architect. And I'll pass the presentation over now to Rushier to speak more about the site.
Sure. Thank
Hi,
you.
this is Rushier, architect, AIBC architecture panel, and this is a rather sensitive context for this project, and obviously owing to the fact that it is adjacent to the ALR zone, as presented earlier, that we are having to go through the DP process. The phase 1, which was not adjacent to a ALR zone, was not subject to a DP process, and we worked with the city straight for the building permit. Now, this being a rather linear site, it does have a linear built form as well. And more importantly, there's a farmland protection buffer to the north, which I guess Al will talk about. But more importantly, it is something in which the access is from the cul-de-sac off of Macmillan Way. And I guess more importantly, there's a right of way that you see there, and everything was contingent upon working with those constraints and an existing boat storage to the south. More importantly, the vehicle access from Macmillan and allowance for future pedestrian access from Macmillan to Dyke Road. That is the important part of the design. And more importantly, I guess there's as you see towards the west side, the building is stepped back, respecting the right of way that you see in a hatched way out there. And I let Darcy talk a little more about the intricacies of the layout. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Rashir and Ross before that. This has been designed as a multi-tenant light industrial building for undetermined yet small users. It's 22 units, about 68,000 square feet. As Rashir pointed out, it's very linear, owing to the site plan, owing to the fact that we're sandwiched between the ALR land to the north and the right-of-way to the south. We've worked extensively with staff to satisfy all the requirements of the zoning bylaw. No variances are requested. Primary access is off of Macmillan Road here through a driveway here and then down along the south side. You can see the vehicle parking and loading. Intermix, we have some garbage areas in conformance with the requirements of the city. Also have 3 amenity areas dispersed through the site, 22 class 1 bicycle and 29 class 2 bicycle parking. So we have ample bike parking. We've provided through consultation with planning, we've provided 12 EV parking spots. The whole building is in full compliance with the current BC building code for accessibility, the entrances, the parking, etc. And we have allowed for future access down to Dyke Road and the trail that's down here from Macmillan through the site by way of, at this time, a way of a 3-meter right-of-way, and will in the future, as determined through the development of these 2 sites in the future phases, the particulars of that right-of-way and path will be determined.
So will that be a new connection through the boat storage?
Eventually, yes, that's the plan.
Yeah, okay.
And I think that's in the conditions of or the rezoning considerations. There's discussions with that being registered on title.
Okay.
So, but that's a long-term plan, as Ross said, that at this time, the future phases that would be here and here, that's a long way down the road. We haven't really done any advanced planning on that until Ross, until they determine that the boatyard is not as viable as the industrial development.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. We have cutoff lighting, designed cutoff lighting around the building so that there's minimal light spill out into the adjacent properties. And the building has been designed with SEPTED requirements in mind. Elevationally, it's a simple building, but we've provided large windows, covered entrances. We broke up the massing through the use of color and articulation. Fairly simple, but it will prove really effective for the 22 small bay users in the end. I think that's sort of the Coles Notes version of the design. The most significant aspect in terms of the development permit, as we understand it, is this ALR site to the north. There is a 5-meter wide buffer provided along the back here, landscaped with a integrated exit path and some stairs. I'd ask Al to jump in and maybe just discuss the landscaping of the site with some extra focus on that.
Okay. Can you put up the drawing for the landscape?
Oh, 1 second here. Let me.
The landscape drawing, I presume.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't have that. I'll get that. Al, if you want to, if there's anything you can do before that. Sorry, guys.
It's all about that landscaping, folks.
I know.
if you're not able to get it up, we do have it in our package. So
Darcy, I just flipped it over to you quickly in case you didn't have it.
I have the version I have might be outdated. That's the only problem. I'm at a different computer, Ross. Unfortunately, I won't be able to open that by my email.
Stephen, are you able to place it up? Because I sent you that file earlier.
Yep, just give me 1 second here.
Thank you, guys. I apologize for that. I could share an older version, but if you've got the most current one, that would be ideal.
That would be.
Sorry, Al. I botched your presentation.
well, he hasn't started yet.
Even before he started, I botched it.
Okay,
Here we go.
that looks. Okay, that looks like it, the most recent, and thank you, Darcy, for giving the overview. Just wanted to mention, first, my name's Al Tanzer, landscape architect. Company is Landspace Design. Like most all projects, it's a collaborative effort when we work on the landscape. We're working with the owner, of course, to get what the prerogatives are, the needs of the project. The architects and the engineers on this project were critical, especially from a grading point of view, and working with the planner for various input on the different requirements that we were able to meet. With that being said, I'll just mention in general that the site, as Darcy mentioned, we have amenities to provide, and the critical components involved both the ALR buffer and also BC Hydro transmission lines coming through the site. To do with the, first with the BC Hydro, we had a limitation to their standard 3-meter height plant requirement. And unfortunately, that does cut through the ALR buffer, but we were able to continue some plantings through there regardless. That should meet the hydro standards for height. Outside of the right-of-way, we've been able to provide trees that meet the city requirements for 4 meters for conifers and 8 centimeters for deciduous trees on the east side. When we first started the project, we started with the typical guide to edge planting for the ALR buffer. And that plan, we provided and submitted it to the city, which was then reviewed by the adjacent farm owner to determine whether it satisfied their specifics as well. And what they did point out was that there's a pond just to the north of our project. And I put an aerial view of it there so you can pick it up. You can see now the existing site where the building will be going, plus there's that triangular shaped area that is in kind of a gray tone. That's the pond. The actual agricultural area for growing is further north of that. So we're not really very much close to the agricultural crops. We have this other buffer between us. The critical factor here was that the farm pointed out, due to the pond, that they were asking that we didn't put any deciduous plant materials in here where leaves and that type of situation would interfere with the pond. So they asked that we plant all evergreens. With that in mind, we then revised a drawing, as you see it now, that has all conifer trees along the north side of the building. And that, but we maintain the same spacing of the trees as the original guideline. And I show in that diagram with the enlargement, you can see the dimensions are provided that meet the guideline. In addition, we have a fence, a 6-foot fence on the property line, which should prevent any kind of interference to the farm operation from outside the development. The grading has been looked at so that there would be no drainage from this site going on to the agricultural site. It's all self-contained. There is a pathway along the back of the building for exits from the units that are required, and that pathway will be gravel instead of concrete or anything hard. So it's all permeable, which also benefits the trees and other plantings. The trees themselves, as it turns out, will also benefit the views from the north, in that the conifers will screen the building entirely within several years from the view. So that will benefit. It'll be like a tree hedge. And there's a mix of tree types within that. The trees are all native trees, and the ground cover is all native, which I think will be beneficial as well. There's no harmful byproducts here from the planting. There's no invasive species. It's very much self-contained. There will be no major shading of the agricultural area, and that is far enough away. And also the trees predictably would be mostly in that 40-foot height, most likely. So won't be extremely high to create any problems for the agricultural growing. The drawing shows a few specifics to do with the amenity, the benches, the tables, bike racks, the fence component, and the plant list, as mentioned in the staff report. It all meets the city requirements. And I'll leave it up for any questions.
Okay, thanks very much for the presentation. John, Cecilia, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I have two questions. One, I think somebody did mention septet and the lighting. So because this is quite isolated area, so just maybe a little bit more detail on the septet side. And secondly, on the grading along the path in the back where you abuts the ALR zone. So I'm assuming by you talking about not draining into the site, you are doing some sort of grading in the back so that the trees are at the same level. Are you building up and somehow managing that? Just those 2 points, please.
Engineering were brought in to provide grade, to help with the grading, and there'll be a swell before the fence line, and there will be any catch basins that are required for any overflow. So there is no water that could spill over the property line.
Thank you.
And on I can jump in on the septet requirement or the septet mitigating factors. The site will be fully fenced. Given the fact that it's the boat storage to the south, it's already a reasonably secure area because of that. So we'll have limited access. And I believe on this project, we're roughing in for security cameras for the individual tenants to provide that. Other septet principles that we followed are glass at the entrances, windows from looking down on the entrance areas. Those kinds of principles have also been incorporated throughout the project.
Okay, thank you.
Great. John, anything?
Yeah, just a quick question. I mean, it does look like a great planting plan. The size and native species seems like a great approach. In terms of survivability, is there going to be irrigation for these things when they're planted?
There will be a high efficiency irrigation system. Just
Great.
about all our projects will have that on them.
Good, thanks.
Okay, no questions from me. So Wayne, do you have comments on this one?
Just a couple quick comments, Mr. Chair. There is a servicing agreement associated with this project for frontage works along Gray Bar and McMillan Way. In terms of the pedestrian connection that was referenced earlier between McMillan Way and Dyke Road, that is a requirement of the rezoning. As in the continued operation of the boatyard does not provide the opportunity for us to provide the direct connection. At this time, there will be an interim connection provided through the phase 1 site to allow the connection between McMillan and Gray Bar Road. So employees of the area will be able to access the waterfront through the site via Gray Bar Road.
So they'll go east and then down Gray Bar Road. Is that right, Wayne?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, okay. I got a bit excited. I thought maybe we were getting the pedestrian connection through the boat storage, but I get how that might be problematic.
It is a working boatyard, so unfortunately that connection isn't feasible at this time. Long term, it has been secured, will be implemented with those future phases. There is also a comprehensive sustainability package which was secured through the rezoning application related to the buildings. That does include rooftop solar PVs for exterior lighting and service areas, and pre-ducting for additional solar PVs should that be determined by future tenants. In terms of the ALR buffer itself, it has been designed in keeping with the Agricultural Land Commission guidelines and was reviewed and supported by the city's Food Security and Agricultural Advisory Committee on June 29th.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Wayne? No, it's pretty comprehensive. Evangel, is there anyone from the public to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's no one from the public.
And nothing written either?
No correspondence, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. So we've got a recommendation to issue the permit from staff. Do we have a mover? Move second. And just before I do call the question, I'll just say that I think linear is okay for this project, given it was an old railway, corridor. And in the same way that we're trying to preserve and better use agriculture, we're also trying to do the same thing with industrial land. So I'm actually really pleased that the adjacent owner was able to acquire the property and then do something useful with it, because between the two phases there's actually quite a bit of buildable floor space there for industrial users. So I think that's really good. Well done. And if there aren't any other comments, I'll call the question. All those in favour? And opposed, so it's carried. Thanks very much for your project.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, new business, anything, Wayne?
Yes, Mr. Chair, the next scheduled meeting of the panel is September 14th. There are no items for that agenda. It would be in order for the panel to pass a resolution canceling that meeting.
Okay, someone to move and second. Call the question. All those in favour? Okay, it's cancelled. And with that, we are adjourned. Thanks very much.
You guys.